and welcome everybody back to the channel. It is the most earth-breaking, ground-shaking, but never media show money taking, the man, the myth, the legend, the most electrifying YouTuber in all of YouTube entertainment today. And today, we're here to talk about the Penguin. You know, we're gonna take over this city, and the world will be ours. There you go. That's my terrible Colin Farrell impression. Okay, so unlike my Joker take, which has been met with very interesting results. I think everybody can agree that the Penguin is not only crushing it in the ratings, but just overall doing well as a show. Um, it is the reason why I'm making a top 10 shows of this year list. Uh, I think that it's definitely a strong contender. I have to see the rest of Tulsa King and Yellowstone will be having its sixth and final season. So I'm gonna have to see like amongst those, but honestly, I would put this show up there. So for the beginning of this review, I'm going to just give my non-spoiler thoughts, and then I'm gonna play the inside the episode as I do, and we're gonna kind of break down different things. I'll add some of my own things and context to it because they kind of jump around in the scenes. It's just a little bit of the thoughts they were thinking about. If you guys would like, or if I get some requests, I may do the weekly podcast that they talk more in depth about creative thoughts and decisions in the episodes, and they speak to the creators and the actors and things like that. So let me know in the comments if you're interested in me breaking down the podcast where the creators come on and the actors and explain the scenes and things like that. They're about hour-long podcasts, so it'll be a uh the Penguin this week. Episode 3 is called Bliss, and my non-spoiler thoughts. I rewatched the episode this morning, as well as watching it when it premiered, and I'm going to give it a 9. I was between an 8 and a 9 because this is a little bit of a slower episode, but after looking at the acting and what they touched on, I'm definitely at a 9. And so far, every episode has been a 9 to 10. So this episode is an episode focused on uh, the uh, the character of Penguin's sidekick there. Why am I drawing a blank? Uh, what's his name? Victor. There we go. This episode is focused on Vic, and it tells what happened in the Batman, like to the people, right? So in the movie The Batman, you episode is we get to see more of what it was like for people who were ground level when the bombs went off. And this is where Victor's story uh, comes into play. This focuses a lot about why we should care about Victor. And it's quite tragic, and it really adds a lot of backstory to his character. And I think when we get to the ending, it's going to flesh out a very tragic scene. This deals with choice. This deals with him dealing with the moral dilemmas of what his father wanted versus what he's becoming. And this is one of those moments, like in The Sopranos or Breaking Bad or things like that, where you have the character who has a choice and it could go either way. And for that, I'm going to get into spoilers and my ideas of what I think is going to happen at the end, near the end of this episode. But so far, 9 out of 10, just because of his acting. The person who plays Victor is so good, and listening to the podcast and listening to that he had a coach to develop a stutter for this character and make it sound natural really shows the level of care and the detail that they're putting into every episode. Like, this kid developed a stutter for this character. He got coached on how people naturally stutter, which I found so fascinating because in a world where Hollywood puts out all of these things and they try to tackle these disabilities and things like that, and it's not really a disability, but kind of quirks that people have, it's interesting to see somebody who actually puts in the work to bring this unique as a character trait that makes him looked down upon. And there's different speeches I'm going to touch upon in this episode where they talk about people who are a little bit different that everybody underestimates solely based on their different quirks. Oz gets it a lot because of how he looks and his limp, and Victor gets it because he can't always form the words or he gets nervous and his stutter kicks in. And I think this all helps in, even though we'll get to what Oz does at the end of this episode, it fleshes out that there's a lot more to Oz and to how he views people versus all the other criminals in Gotham and all the stereotypical mob people. And we even get a little bit of insight into Sofia and Oz's relationship. So on the non-spoiler, 9 out of 10, great stuff. And then I'm going to now jump into a little bit more of the episode. So as I will always do, I'm going to play an inside of the episode with HBO as the creators explain everything. And I'm going to kind of give you my thoughts on the different scenes. They only talk about a couple of scenes, so I'll go back through and break down the whole episode after it's done and over with, and just kind of give you all my overall thoughts of the episode as a whole. So, let's get a good look at the next inside the episode as we kind of just break down this episode called.
In episode 3, Sophia and Oz really team up together, and it's also Victor's episode. I always viewed Victor as the heart of our show. Aguilar is a family name. I wanted to represent Latinos because I'm half Mexican, but Renzi's Dominican, and so I made Victor half Mexican and half Dominican, and that was something that was really important to me to see depicted.
And I just would like to say the actor, uh, Renzi, I can't pronounce his name and I don't want to butcher it, but first saw this actor who's playing Victor on the Marvel's Runaway, and I always thought he kind of had this charisma. But in this show, this kid puts in so much work that I would be surprised if you won't see him in more stuff. This has got to be some of the finest acting I've seen in a very long time, especially from someone so young and just starting off. This kid has really big potential.
Depicted.
He's a 17-year-old kid from Crown Point, not necessarily the best circumstances, really one of the worst neighborhoods in Gotham, and we find out exactly what happened with his family.
So this is a heartbreaking scene, and they're not going to show all of it, but Victor, his mom, and his dad live in a small apartment building. Victor's father is a mechanic, does honest work. But in this scene, which they don't break down, so I'm going to give a little bit more context, he has a conversation with his father. This is in the beginning of the episode, and his father talks about how he's so proud of his work and stuff, and Victor talks about how people take advantage of his father. And I think a lot of this plays into the character of why Victor has this connection with Penguin, because Penguin doesn't treat him as someone less than. He makes him feel like a man, like he's doing things. And I think it's very interesting because in crime dramas, we don't really explore what it's like from when you're younger growing up and you see all of these things happen and you form your own views and opinions. And Victor is watching his father being uh, basically like used by these people and saying, Dad, you're better than this. Why don't you do something different? And before these circumstances can change, which they're not going to show, but the bombs go off in Gotham. And there's a really chilling scene. He's up there with his girlfriend, so you get to a little bit into the relationship he had before meeting the Penguin, and the bombs go off, and right where he lives, the water floods the whole entire street, and they're sitting on top of a roof watching all of the lower end of Gotham being decimated, and he just watches his family basically drown to death. And it's such a heartbreaking scene, which really makes you more endeared to this character, which gives me a bad feeling about the end of the show.
Que Dios te bendiga. ¿Cómo te fue el día?
Yeah, yeah. That's the first time we see Victor outside of the influence of Oz. It feels separate from everything else in Gotham. Cool, man. It's very golden in color, and the family is very warm and introduces us to the love that Victor had, and then we watch him lose it.
This is one of the most chilling scenes. Like this shot right here was so crazy. So when you watch the movie The Batman, we see Batman look down at the flood from on top of the high roofs. And it's almost a distinction between Batman and the people. He sees everything from a bird's eye view. He's not in it. But Victor was watching his whole world be destroyed right in front of his eyes. He sees the water coming in and he knows what's going to happen, and he's literally watching everything that he knew before meeting Penguin, everything he grew up with, just destroyed in one swoop. And it's really heartbreaking because we see natural disasters, Hurricane Katrina, things like that, and you never know the aftermath unless you're in it. And this to me really hit me and probably what bumped up my score to a 9. Just the visuals and showing the complete devastation. This adds more context to the movie. So when you rewatch that, you go, holy shit, all of those people are dead and they died horribly. And I think the great thing about this show is it gives a lot of context to the Batman movie. In retrospect, this show makes the Batman movie so much better because now you're seeing it from other people's perspective. You're seeing it from these people who are devastated because Batman wasn't in time. He couldn't save them. And this is the result of when Batman is fighting these psychopaths. The thing they never touch out, right? The innocent people who die just for him to get this one evil bad guy. But there's so much other things going on. And I think it really adds and fleshes out the world of Batman like no other property we've seen done here in the Batman universe. Like that's shot, and that's all
And
you
that
see.
leaves him basically orphaned in a pretty desperate situation.
I'm sorry.
Which is right when he runs into Oz.
Don't move, you twat-faced little prick.
Talk about a power vacuum. I mean, there's an emotional and psychological and existential vacuum in Vic's life. Now Vic is without, he's a man alone. The two of them are men alone in this kind of broken world.
And there's a great speech. I don't know if they're going to touch on it, but I will touch on it later when they're in the club. And you get to really see how Oz feels as an individual and why he connects so much with Victor. These are both two people who have lost everything. Now, we're not getting into Oz's family situation. I think that's a little further ahead. I've only seen up to episode 4, but I think at 5 or 6 they're going to get into it. But Oz has clearly lost people close to him. So hearing Vic's story and knowing where he comes from, he feels like this special bond because they both have lost everything and kind of forced into taking what they want. And in some ways, what makes him such a great character is that when you listen to what he's saying, you're like, fuck yeah, that's true. Like these people have been fucked by the world. They've been fucked over and they're looked down on and they're considered jokes. And Oz is the only person who treats this kid like a person because he knows what it's like to be treated like this outcast, this joke that everybody laughs at. And I think that creates such a good dynamic. It makes I've heard so many people say that this show is mesmerizing, and there's a reason because the acting and the dialogue between characters is so fucking well written. Like, it's amazing that this is just a television show. Every episode feels like it's a movie you're just watching each week. And every episode's just about an hour, which I'm so tired of these shows coming out that are only 6 or 8 episodes and they're like 40 minutes. Like in an hour, you could tell so much and you can flesh out so many things. So 8 hours, you can do a lot with a show like this. And it's just amazing writing.
We never discussed your salary. What do you say we start you on one a week, huh?
1,000 a week?
Someone living in desperation and then having that chance to grab at more. It's this kind of dark American dream that so many gangster stories are about. And there's a moment where Vic could run away.
So this is the moment where we see his girlfriend. We've seen her in other episodes. And it's the same old trope with a bit of a different spin, and I'll tell you why at the end. But basically, they're both were in this FEMA shelter, and she is moving away to California. and she wants Victor to come with her. Now, I thought this was going to be where Penguin was going to fucking kill him or whatever, but this right here is where we talk about in these shows the choice every character has, and it's so fucking heartbreaking because you can side with them with either choice that they make, and you understand the reasons for their choice, and that's what makes writing good. If you can understand why a character chooses what they choose based on who they are as the character written, then that is just extremely good writing. And it's so crazy because throughout this whole episode, emotionally, you have a tug of war with, like, yeah, maybe he should get out of here. This is his only chance. Like, if he doesn't take this chance, he's not getting out, and you know that as a viewer. And the way that the writers just fuck with your emotions in this episode, where you're conflicted about what Vic should do, or what's going to happen to him if he makes the wrong choice, and what is Oz going to do. That is good writing, and it's been solid for 3 episodes in. Like, it's hard for a show to capture people on one, but 3 episodes in, and it just gets better and better as you go through this show.
Wants to be with his girlfriend, Graciela, who we're finding out about for the first time. We knew he's lost his family. We didn't know what happened to his girlfriend.
You could come with me.
I'm not sure that he'd let me go.
Who, your boss?
He has this crossroads choice. He feels, in a way, as if he has been kidnapped by Oz.
Setting up that anxiety, those are like the kind of connections that go from the flood, then that scene between Vic and Graciela where he has a chance to get out, and then the panic attack.
So, in this episode, you see Victor having an internal struggle. He's trying to decide, and he almost feels like a prisoner. Now, there's a scene they didn't go over where Oz talks to Vic in the bathroom, and throughout the whole episode, Victor has been getting a call from Graciana to meet her at this bus stop. They're going to take a bus and they're going to go to California together and try to build some kind of a life. And this scene in the club, they make him what's called a bag man, where he distributes these new drugs that they are launching now called Bliss, and he has a panic attack in the middle of the club, which is like kind of the crescendo of this choice, right? It's the point where he's starting to have everything hit him, and him and Oz have this great dialogue in the bathroom where Oz is not even mad at him when he realizes what's going on. Because at first he thinks he's stealing money from him, and he realizes it's a choice that he has to go with his girl. And he says to him, you going to leave me for some piece of ass? And he goes, I thought you were ambitious. I thought you wanted more. He goes, you could stay here and build a life, or you can leave and take your chances and be where you've always been. And he goes, I'm not holding you prisoner. I never was. He goes, you're holding yourself prisoner. And, he does threaten him, but it's just out of this rage that he has. And he goes, go ahead, get the fuck out of here. Leave, make your choice. And he goes, but if you're in, you're in. And he drives away. And that's where you're going, holy shit, what is he going to do? Is he actually leaving? He goes to the bus stop to meet Graciana, and he sees her in the bus, and he's sitting in Oz's car, and he has this flash in his face and this look, and he chooses to let her go because he knows deep in his heart what Oz told him is he is ambitious. He wants more out of his life. The conversation between him and his father in the beginning of the episode is him getting mad at his father because he never reached for more. He was just happy being where he was at in life. But Victor doesn't want that. Victor wants to be somebody. He wants to mean something in the world. And it's such powerful acting from Reyes as a performer. Just like his facial expressions, their dialogue. I mean, this is top tier acting.
That Pebble Bliss Vial connection was a huge thing in bringing the whole story and the whole episode together. There's been so many permutations of that scene and how much we see Victor, flashbacks, other dancers on the floor. It's been a real challenge, but it's also my favorite scene.
You were more than your father ever had.
My dad would be ashamed of me.
You want to know what's shameful, Vic? working your whole goddamn life, having nothing to show for it.
That scene, it's a heat of the moment. But
That is, I'm glad they showed that. That's one of my favorite lines. And while Oz respects what Victor's father was to him, and it reminds me of so many mob movies. There's a movie that I love called The Bronx Tale, and there is a scene between Robert De Niro, and I forget the actor's name, but he plays his son, and he tells him the working man is a sucker. And Robert De Niro goes, "The working man's not a sucker." He goes, "At the end of the day, I'm going to be alive, and those fucking people are going to be in the ground." And there's this whole monologue about it. And I got flashbacks of that movie in this scene where he basically tells him, "Yeah, your dad was a good man, but what did he end up with? Good people die. Good people don't end up with shit. They end up alone and miserable, basically." And he's saying, if you want it, you're going to have to do some dark shit to get what you want. And that's the way the world works. And I thought that was just the way it was phrased. And the back and forth is so intense without having any action, really. Just their, their pushback and this kind of connection that you see that they have.
Victor was vulnerable enough earlier in that episode to open up about his parents, and Oz kind of throws it back in his face. Of course, first instinct, I'm out of here. I can go off with this girl that I love and go start a new life. Then screw you, that's what I'm doing. I don't want to be here under the gun the rest of my life.
And you're starting to realize that Oz actually has developed feelings for Vic, that he has a kind of affinity. He thinks of him almost like a family member.
And this is the part where you see Oz he actually gives a shit about everyone. Now, through the episodes, you see he's willing to throw lots of people under the bus. But this kid has got to him like nobody else. And in a lot of ways, they silently understand each other. They understand, while not everything that they do, they understand the reasons. And you can see Oz having a real deep connection with Vic. He takes him up. It's almost like a son, like a surrogate father. There's a scene where he tells him he's proud of him and gives him like a little bump on the chin. And you feel like for the first time, Oz would actually go out on a limb for this kid. He would more than likely do whatever he could to keep him from being in any real mortal danger, and that he sees himself securing him and this kid's future together. And there's something so beautiful, and I feel that's going to be so tragic when we get to the end of this, because I really fucking love Victor. And I'm trying to think how they're going to have this kid in the sequel. I can't see it. And I think if something happens to him, it's going to fucking devastate me and a lot of audience members, because this kid is so nice.
Then there's a turn that happens with Vic.
He comes to the realization that he's not necessarily under the gun. He finally has a chance to be something, to feel important, to feel like you're really in the game.
And that is the scene right there, and it's such a powerful scene. There's no dialogue or there's nothing really fancy, but the end of the episode where he's looking at her and he's watching her leave on the bus, and he had a free and clear opportunity. Oz was just going to let him go. He was going to be like, you know, go off and do your thing. Find your way in the world. I tried to give you something better. In his own way, he tried to elevate him. And Victor has this moment where he realizes something. Him and Oz, no matter, you know, they're on different spectrums as far as heinous shit they've done, but they have the same ambition, they have the same drive, and they have the same need for people to see them, to have people's attention, to get people to realize these people are unique. They're special. And that's the feeling that I get most of all is this. Oz and Victor both have a need for people to see them, their potential, and they're both underestimated. And in that moment where he lets his love go and he doesn't go with him, that is him confirming what Oz said. He's ambitious, he wants more out of life, and he's gonna fucking take it. And this is the moment in every story, the crossroad, where you're going, God damn it, at the screen, because this choice isn't gonna end well. But this is a choice he made. And I like how the writers make that very clear. Oz didn't push him into this decision. He had a choice. He could have gone free and clear, but he's choosing to stay. So now, whatever consequences come from this decision is on him. And Oz has basically said that through this whole thing. He's like, I didn't kill you the first time. You had a choice to leave. You could have told me at any time, but you chose to stay because you want more. And to convey that in just a scene of watching a bus drive away and stuff like that is such sharp writing. It's so good. These writers are so good.
Victor starts to see it as more of an opportunity.
One of the things that allows Sophia and Oz to kind of come together in those initial episodes is that there are these characters who everyone looks to as if there's something other about them. And so you see them deeply wanting a kind of vengeance.
Was it worth it?
What's that?
What you did to me?
So in this episode, we find out what Oz did to Sophia. And the gist of it was Oz was Sophia's driver, and she was the one who brought him in. And they always had some kind of certain bond. Now, they don't get into specifics of whether it's just a friendship or whether there was some other thing going on between them, but out of all the people Oz fucked over, you could definitely tell he did not feel good about fucking her over. And the general gist was Oz uh, told on her, thinking that her father was just going to give her a slap on the wrist or maybe talk with her or whatever. And Carmine has Sophia fucking committed. And Oz has to watch her being taken away, not even realizing what was going to happen to her. So, for these years she's been locked up, the deepest pain she felt was almost a betrayal because of how close they were of Oz. And in a way, which I'll get to later when they play the scene, he she's the one person he feels bad for fucking over. And you could tell he feels bad about fucking her over, which is going to be hilarious when we get to the next scene.
There was a history between the two of them, a direct history, and there was a kind of a sense of kinship.
They make a good team. They both complement each.
I just want to say Christina Milioti is a fucking great actress. The way she plays this role, like switching from a crazy look, and then when she's talking about Oz and his portrayal, you can see like in her eyes the way she acts, the deep fucking pain when she talks about it, and her really wanting to know, even towards the episode, like why. Were you doing it because you wanted to move up? Was it because you don't give a shit about anybody? Like, why would you let them do that to me for 10 years? And I do understand from his perspective. He's like, hey, I didn't know your fucking father was going to have you committed. So,
Other and bring out sides of each other that I think the other one needs.
I'm fucking sorry for everything that's happened to you. You meant something to me. Still do.
That always was an important scene for all of us, and that we all knew that the door to Oz's humanity is still open. And he's still able to reach out and try to connect with another person.
and before we get to this scene, so they have a talk, and finally Oz opens up, and he says, like, what do you want me to say? He goes, I fucking got perks. I got to run my own club and stuff like that. No, I'm not made, but he goes, I don't regret what I've done to get to where I'm at. I had nothing, and then I had something. And in a sense, you could see how she does respect his answer because he's not bullshitting for once. He's telling her the truth. Like, yeah, he didn't know what it was going to lead to, but he wants power and he wants respect. And he doesn't feel bad about who he's got to fuck over to get it. And in a lot of ways, him and Sophia have this weird relationship where she knows fully what Oz is and that he'll fuck you over in a moment's notice. But in a sense, she respects that because he never hides it. He's pretty plain about who he is and he doesn't give a fuck who knows about it. And she respects that because everybody in this family is cagey or they have ulterior motives, but they pretend and they act like they're your friend. And Oz is very much upfront. Like he talks his way out of shit, but he's pretty upfront about who he is and what he does.
Don't move. Don't fucking move. Oz, you think he can pay us?
You really
Now, this is the biggest cliffhanger. So, after all the bullshit, all the stuff leading up between episode 1 and 2, finally, Maroney's wife there, Rhea, has had enough of his shit. And after they just made this deal to sell Bliss to the Triads, Maroney's wife comes and she is going to execute both of them outside. And this is where we see Victor's choice come into play, and he goes back.
realize how difficult this is for her. The one guy she thinks she maybe can trust, even though she knows that that's a dicey situation out of the gate, he screwed her over.
We gotta fucking go now.
So Victor plows his car into the two people that have them at gunpoint, or one of them, which distracts the men long enough. Oz jumps in the car and he leaves Sofia to her fate with the Maronis. Holy shit, what a cliffhanger. Uh, Especially because throughout this episode, it's about rebuilding this trust. And right when she lets down her guard and she thinks, like, yeah, I could give him another chance and start trusting him, he fucking leaves her.
What about Sofia? Fuck! Leave her!
And that's kind of where we at. So let me go to my own thoughts here. Great fucking episode. This episode dealt a lot of bit with characters and building up the different things about the three key players, which obviously from this show, our key players is Victor, Penguin, and Sofia. And kind of this three-way dynamic where they're getting into this new situation. Nobody can trust anybody. And in this episode, I think the most heartbreaking thing about it is you see this trust being built up between Sophia and Oz again. And he's opening up and kind of letting her know how he feels, and she's reconnecting and she's working to this place where she can trust him again. And then the end of the episode just nails home the fact that when his life is in danger, Oz will fucking throw people right under the bus in order to preserve his own life. And it's kind of this weird dynamic with the character because you see these sides of him. Hey, what's up, Carmel? Good to see you here. Thank you. Um, you see in these episodes this thing where Oz opens up as a human being, and then a couple of scenes later he fucks over the person who's with him. And I think this is going to play a lot into the end of the show. And this also plays a lot even to the comic book character of why Oz is always alone. Like, despite all of these people he has around him, he's a big mobster or whatever. Despite all of these, relationships that he builds with everyone, these connections, none of them really mean anything to him. Now, it remains to be seen if there's going to be a point in this show where he fucks Victor over. But as of now, everybody that he has worked with, he has threw him under the bus when it comes down to his own safety. Like, if he is distant from the situation, he'll be loyal to you. But once he's involved, if his life's directly in danger, he'll throw a fucking baby in the middle of the way. He does not give a shit. And I think that's what makes it so interesting when you're dealing with villains and you're dealing with a show in particular that deals with the villain. You have to ride a very fine line of making them sympathetic enough for the audience to want them to kind of succeed and to be on their side, but you can't let them forget that this is a bad guy. This is not a good guy. He's not altruistic. We can understand his perspective. We can understand where he's coming from. But at the end of the day, Oz is the fucking villain. He is the antagonist. He is literally going to be one of Batman's primary pains in his asses, like that thorn in his side. Because at the end of the day, even though despite his situation of being poor or whatever else and coming up in bad circumstances, he kind of uses it as a justification to fuck people over and be like, well, that's the way the world works. I'm just getting what's mine. And I think that's what makes people so fascinated with this show is how they ride a tightrope between having you root for Oz, but also having you see that he is a piece of shit. And at the end of the day, he is not going to help anybody but himself. And you have all of this relationship building in the beginning of this episode where he has a heart to heart with Vic. He has a good talk with Sophia. Things are looking up. And then at the end of this episode, he fucks Sophia over and he leaves her to the Maronis, which they're going to fucking kill her, or at the very least tell her what Oz did and then kill her or torture her and kill her. Like, he knows that choice where he left her there to die, he made that conscious decision. And so it's going to be really interesting the next episode. Like I said, I've seen the four, so I know what the next episode is, and I can tell you, oh boy, it's a doozy. But now I kind of just want to get into some predictions that I have and where I think the story is going. But yeah, I give this episode a 9 out of 10. Brilliant writing once again. The acting is great. The visual is great. The only reason why I was between an 8 or a 9 is because, unlike most episodes in this show, this episode is a little bit slower. They kind of slow down the pace. So, yeah, that's where I'm at, NerdTube. I gave it a 9 as well. And that was on the rewatch because, like I said, this episode, and I understand it's 8 episodes, and so you always have to have that episode that slows down the pace and builds character development. And I'm kind of glad that they did it in the third episode because I could tell you right now, I've seen 4 of the 8 episodes, and the fourth one's fucking nuts. But this one I feel really showcases the talent of Reyes. And when you have character centric episodes, you really need to have an actor who could nail that character traits. Like I said, and I think I'm going to do a breakdown of the podcast when they discuss these things, but the actor was talking about how he had a coach to develop a stutter so it comes off natural. Oh, yeah. Thank you. I love mobsters. I love mobster shows too. The Sopranos is one of my favorite shows of all time. I think it's very close between The Sopranos and Breaking Bad. Tulsa King is good too. Yep, and I watch uh, Gangs of London. I actually am going to start doing more shows because I do want to do a review on the Tulsa King. I think it's a exceptionally great show. Stallone should get some kind of a fucking nomination for that show. But oh, I watched Lilyhammer. Stevie Van Zandt is the main protagonist of that. I always like to think of it as like a Sopranos spinoff, well, at least in my head canon, anyways. But yeah, I've always liked mob dramas. And I think that the thing that I think, so I want to do the numbers here. This show started off with 2.5 million views or whatever. It was the same as The Acolyte. But the difference between this and most shows is that as this show is gaining momentum, I'm hearing a lot of chatter from different people who don't even watch comic book shows that really love this show. And I think honestly, HBO has another hit on their hands. I can't wait for the Dune show to come out. Uh, but this shows that you can do grounded comic book stuff and still keep the essence of what the comic book character is. In the comic books, Penguin is kind of goofy, a little bit out there, in the fantastical world, but he's also a pretty grounded gangster. He's like one of the most grounded adversaries that Batman has. And I think that Colin Farrell puts so much work into this, and I think he really understands this character like no one I've ever seen do a portrayal of the Penguin. He really gets uh, what this character symbolizes in this grounded world. Yeah, thank you. I never liked Danny DeVito's take. I thought it was a little bit too fantastical. Like, I get it. That was more of the campy Batman, but yeah, I don't think we ever got, besides the Arkham games, a really good Penguin. Yeah, I don't like the top hat or the monocle either. I think it's fucking ridiculous. I heard people upset that they don't have that, and I'm like, look, this is a more realistic version of Gotham, and as long as you keep the essence of who the character is, then I think there's a lot to work with here. So now I want to do some predictions, and NerdTube, you can make a prediction too. I don't foresee Vic making it through this. Um, I gotta be honest with you, like, I know if they kill him off, I'm gonna be fucking pissed. But just based on everything, this kid is way too nice. And I don't think so. My prediction is I don't think Oz is gonna kill Vic. I think that something is gonna happen. And I'm either betting Sofia or someone in the Falcons is gonna get onto Oz's bullshit. And when they can't get to him, I think they're gonna kill Victor. As far as Sofia, she's definitely gonna fucking die. Um, Christina Milioti is so fucking good in this role, and I would love to see her in more Batman properties and the Matt Reeves verse and this thing that he's building out. I'd like to see her, but just the way she is, she's like 3 seconds away from a big psychotic break. And with the episode ending the way that it does, and we'll get to episode 4 when we get there, but when you get the full backstory on her character, which is, I'd say probably episode 4 is my favorite without having seen the rest of the show. But when you get into the shit that she's been through, like, oh my god, you can understand why she's on a razor's edge and why she's so close between teetering that line between uh, just fucking snapping at any moment. So he will overcome his stutter and be a badass. I would love that. I would honestly love to see Victor featured in the next Batman movie. I think that'd be a great surprise if he actually makes it through this series and we see him grow as a character and he like legitimately becomes like the Penguin's right hand man. That would be fucking awesome. And the fact he wasn't introduced in the Batman, they could keep him and like have him in the background of the Batman too. Like maybe we'll see him as, he'll introduce him as his like right hand guy. I would ideally love to see Victor and Penguin just fucking take over the city. That is my happy ending. But knowing how mob drama ends, I think Penguin's mother's definitely going to die. I think Sophia's definitely going to die. I think Vito's going to die because he's been fucking with everybody. Um, I think towards the end of this show, there's going to be a ton of people getting off. I'm predicting in episode 7 or 8, you're going to see at least 4 or 5 characters die. Like, there's the way they're building this up, there is no way that this could end with at least like 4 or 5 people not dying. When Vic left his girlfriend, he chose his path. Yeah, that's what I was just talking about in the middle of the episode. When he left, that's the moment in these mob shows where the character has that choice, the the nice character that everybody likes, and he makes the wrong choice, and you understand why, but you fucking know after he makes that choice, nothing good is gonna happen. Nothing good ever happens when the nice character decides to break bad. It's just kind of like the rules of these. Although I would like to see them subvert our expectations, and I'd love to see Vic see it through the rest of the series, but I just don't see it happening. I don't know if it's going to be something he does out of kindness. I don't know if it's going to be somebody trying to get the Penguin and they just kill him to get Penguin pissed off. Or maybe Victor dying is what fully transitions the Penguin into being the Penguin. Because right now, I look at this as a halfway point. This is Oz's rise to power. And I think you need that thing that transforms the character. And like I think one of the ways they could do that is if Victor dies and Oz goes fucking ballistic and starts taking out everybody. I could also see that as a possibility. Or hell, maybe they both live and they run Gotham together. I don't know, but I got to tell you guys, this is one of my favorite episodes or favorite shows of this year. And honestly, when I do my top 10 list of top 10 shows of the year, this is going to be probably up there. I would be surprised if it doesn't take number one. It's just Yellowstone comes back and Tulsa King season 2 is out. I haven't watched the episodes because I watched them with my lovely lady. So we're going to watch them all together. But honestly, for me, like Tulsa King, Yellowstone, and this show are like the top 3 shows of this year. No questions. Like some of the best fucking writing on television. Yeah, no, Shogun was really good too. That's what I'm saying. It's Shogun was really good. Yeah, Oz's girlfriend is definitely gonna die. I forgot to mention that. I definitely do think that after this, Sofia will kill Oz's girlfriend to make a statement because he just fucked her over in a major way. And I think she's going to want to hit him where it's really going to hurt. So, yeah, I could see definitely, if I had to guess, I'm going to guess that Sophia is going to kill Oz's girlfriend herself, or they're going to get into a fight, or something's going to happen. Either it's going to go down like she's going to kill Oz's girlfriend, or hell, maybe Oz's girlfriend kills her. And because she killed somebody in the family, that brings repercussions to the little escort service that she runs. I mean, the great thing about this show is I love each week being able to theorize where these episodes are going to go because, folks, for the first time in a very long time, I have no fucking idea where this show is going to go. There's so many possibilities and so many different directions they can take this where I would honestly be happy with any choice they're choosing because these writers get it. They just like this is one of those shows that comes out of nowhere and that assembles just this dream team of writers and you have these actors and set designers and just these team of people who give a shit, man. Like they give a shit about what they're making and they put everything into it and it shows in every moment of this show. From the dialogue to the set designs to the soundscape to even the visuals. Like so far my favorite visual in this show is the scene of Victor watching the flood and his fucking family getting demolished. It is so haunting, especially when the camera zooms in and you see the water and all you see is water flooding into the apartment. It's so fucking heartbreaking and it's so devastating to watch. Uh, I do agree. HBO doesn't kidify their shit like Disney, yeah. And I said, I like Agatha all along. I think it's one of the better Marvel shows to come out in the past few years. But the issue that I have, and I've said this before, my issue that I have with Agatha and with people pitting Agatha against Penguin because they're the shows releasing side by side, I think, and don't get me wrong, Aubrey Plaza and Catherine, whatever the fuck her name is, I always forget her last name. They are they're killing it. And I think that in a lot of ways the show is sharply written. There's a little sass and back and forth. But my issue is going from a show like The Penguin to watching a show like Agatha really ruins my enjoyment of the show. Because while I know they're different properties and they're in different universe, they're trying to do the same things, which is Agatha is all along is trying to make villains likable, and I don't think the writing team is as good as this team because they don't lean into the fact that Agatha is a fucking terrible person. And they kind of play it up for a laugh, but the thing is, it's very hard to get behind the character. Like episode 4 was the first time I actually thought the show was uh, exploring more stuff. And I think that's hard for people, especially after you go from watching this show and then you go into Agatha, and it's very weird and quirky in the first 2 episodes. And you're asking your audience to wait till you get to episode 3 or 4 to where it really picks up. And I don't think that's very good writing. I love Catherine Hahn and the Hots of Aubrey Plaza. Regardless of the shows being different, they both are based on comic book characters. Very true. And HBO is adult entertainment. Oh, absolutely. And Agatha does go for a more adult feel, especially the fact that they showed Catherine Hahn naked when she was waking up, like that shot. So they're trying to go for a more of an adult feel with this show. The differences is the character writing for me. They want you to like Agatha or to try to side with her, but she's so fucking nasty the way they have her written that it's very hard for me to get behind the character. Whereas you have Penguin, who literally murders somebody in the first episode, and yet I have a better understanding of why. And I think that's the issue you have between these two shows, is that the writers are more interested in Agatha all along on moving the plot forward, and they're not doing much to build character development. Uh, I don't mind family entertainment, but that is all we're getting from Disney. I agree. I'm hoping when they release Daredevil Born Again, which is one of my most anticipated shows from Marvel, I'm hoping they really, because they got the original writers from Netflix, I hoping that they really take like fucking notes from this show. Like, you can make Marvel DC properties that have an adult spin on them where fucking grown-ups and teenagers or whatever else, older audiences can watch it and not fucking feel stupid. And unfortunately for me, Agatha is in a weird place where it wants to be mature, but it also wants to appeal to a younger audience, so the writing really suffers as a result. Matt Murdock is the Daredevils from She-Hulk, who is far from moody. Yeah, I'm hoping they kind of bring him back to the character he was on the Netflix show. Um, I definitely like a more brooding um, Matt Murdock, but we'll see. All in all, I give this episode a 9 out of 10. So far, every episode of the show has been a 9 for me. I may bump it up to a perfect 10 depending on how they stick the landing, because honestly, this is writing. When I was growing up, and I used to watch The Sopranos as it premiered. I think I jumped on board around the second season. My father would watch The Sopranos, and so I got the box set of the first season of The Sopranos, and I fell in love with it. And I watched it from the second season all the way till what I consider the most masterful ending in television. A lot of people hated it. I think it was brilliant. But uh, I owned every single DVD box set, and I haven't seen writing this sharp since those days. Like HBO in their heyday, where every show they made was just fucking amazing. Whether you liked or hated, The Leftovers, Sex in the City, The Sopranos, like this is like golden age of television writing, where just everything is so good. Game of Thrones, like HBO has fallen off on having good shows, but I think they're really catching their stride. Yeah, that's what I said. I always knew he was shot at the end. I would want to do a breakdown of that last episode, because it was a ballsy move, and I think the thing that was unique about when that episode aired, before that, nobody had ever done an ambiguous ending to a television show like that before The Sopranos did that. I remember people were calling up because they thought that something happened with their service. It was a wild to see. And now I think the ending is more fondly looked at than it was all those years ago. Looked at Thunderbolts, it is PG-13 when it should be R. Yeah, I think. Well, see, I think you can do it PG-13. I think you can do it PG. Um, I am still very much interested in seeing Thunderbolts. Back in the day, TV shows did not end; they got canceled. Yeah, that's what makes The Sopranos so unique too. Is that David Chase always had a plan on where he was going to end the show, like Breaking Bad. Um, Breaking Bad is like my second favorite show of all time, and they knew the ending when they started the show. And I think you can see that with the Penguin too. When you have a definitive endpoint and you don't budge and you say, "This is what I'm going for, this is where we're going," then you're not forced to push things back and make stupid subplots because you got to keep the show running. And I think a lot of networks and things are starting to realize that it's okay to end a show. You could do spin-offs. I mean, Better Call Saul was just as good as Breaking Bad. I'd say they're both on the same level. Like you can do spin-offs in that universe, you can work on other characters while ending the fucking story instead of keeping it going for 10 years and it falling off and giving us an ending we never wanted. I like Breaking Bad, but I never understood the cult status it got. Better Call Saul was better. Oh yeah, Better Call Saul. It's funny. In the beginning, it's tougher to get into, but it's so much better. Yeah, I do agree. Like, I'm very conflicted because I feel like Better Call Saul's ending was so satisfying, and it's like so much like, yeah, that's what would happen. And I like the fact that the character doesn't get a happy ending because he is a scumbag, but he does get a happier ending than Walt, and he kind of becomes uh, Jimmy at the end of that, and he drops Saul and he accepts himself, and I think that's cool. Like even though he's gonna be in prison for the rest of his life, he still has the person he loves that's going to visit him. And, he gets about as happy of an ending as a guy like that can get. Y- Well, I mean, he was a kingpin for a little bit. I would have liked to see a little bit more of his reign, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't think the way Walt was made as a character, he was ever meant to last long just because of his ego is so fucking big that, a guy like that can never stay on top because he's just too narcissistic. And I think that's the biggest thing with Breaking Bad that's so brilliant. And especially Bryan Cranston's acting is just like his ego is the biggest thing that fucked him over. If he was a little bit more like Gus or these other people, he probably could have lasted longer. But he was always doomed to fail just because he's egomaniacal. And so I think that was kind of the point with the way that they went with that ending and why he fell from power so quickly was that, you know, he just didn't put much trust in the people around him. He didn't know when to quit. And like seeing that scene where he has all the money on the crates, it's just like I love that scene between him and Skylar where she's like, when is enough? Like they literally have pallets of money she can't watch, millions of dollars sitting in a fucking storage unit. And it's like, how much fucking money do you need? Like, what is it gonna take for you to realize that you've done what you wanted to do? He went beyond what his goal was. Oh yeah. Yeah, I did not like the mid-season break. I said in my review that was gonna hurt the viewing because that was way too long, and that wasn't the directors. That was AMC. There was something, not the writer strikes, but something happened, and they made the show take an extra long break. I don't know if they wanted to build up anticipation or milk whatever they could because they knew it was the end of the season, but that was AMC's fault because I read into that, and the executives wanted the show to have one more year to get the ratings for their network. AMC is such a fucking shitty company. What they did to The Walking Dead is fucking atrocious. Yeah, that's true. It did feel it did that's what I said. Like when I'm reviewing those, I do them as one season, but it really did feel like a completely separate season by the time they released them. I totally agree. But anyways, guys, I try to keep these to an hour. Thank you very much, NerdTube, for joining me. Yeah, I gave up on Walking Dead myself. I do have a review if you want to check it out. I have a tier list ranking and a review on the spin-offs and every season of The Walking Dead. I know quite a few people dropped off at about season 5. Um, I love Negan and I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan, so I kind of stuck it out for the rest of the show. But really, he's the only one who holds up the rest of the seasons. It got fucking bad. The writing got so bad. And Scott M. Gimple is a fucking clown. He's a terrible fucking director. Oh, okay, yeah. You dropped off at 8. Dude, you lasted a lot longer than I thought you would. Yeah, yeah. I don't blame you. A lot of people drop off at 5 or 7, some and 8. But I totally get it, man. It was I'll tell you right now, when I went back through to do my tier list, watching the last season was fucking so hard to get through. It was so terrible. I can't even express how many breaks. I watched it on Netflix. I had to take so many breaks in between episodes. It was just so painfully boring and bad. And the last episode isn't an episode. They just made it so they can do fucking spin-offs. What Scott Gimple did to The Walking Dead, I hate him as a director and a writer. I think he's a hack and he's way overrated. Like he wasn't even responsible for the first season. Frank Darabont was the writer and director. Okay, sorry about that. Frank Darabont was the director and the writer for the first 2 seasons, or he wrote the scripts, and then they Scott Gimple took over after that, and that's where you see the inconsistencies in the writing. So yeah, I hated it. But thank you, NerdTube, for coming on and interacting with me. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody who's been watching these. Hopefully, I have brought more insights to the episode. I like watching inside the episode to get an idea what the creators and writers were thinking. I find it really fascinating when they give logical reasons for the choices that they made. I can tell the writing team is passionate. The Matt Reeves is very passionate about this universe, and it feels good because I'm a fan of DC to see DC going in this direction. I think James Gunn is gonna fucking kill it, and Peter Safran. I already love the direction they're taking this universe and how they're focusing individually on these properties and giving them the attention that they care for. Now, I know a lot of people didn't like Joker 2. I did. You guys can see my review. But I will say the Joker 2 is a holdover from the previous DCU. So there's a good chance. And Matt Reeves has said he's done. So, or not Matt Reeves, Todd Phillips has said he's done doing that kind of stuff. So there's a good chance that after this, all of these disconnected things are going to kind of be over here, and I'm very fascinated to see where James Gunn takes the universe. Clearly, he's overseeing all this stuff, and he looked at this script and knew it was going to be a hit. So already James Gunn and Peter Safran are making great choices. Putting Matt Reeves in charge of this section of the Batman verse is paying off huge for them. The Batman was a hit. This show is a instant hit. Uh, and I'm so excited to see where this creative team takes this section of the Batman universe. And I am so excited to see the new Superman from Peter Gunn, or James Gunn, Peter Gunn. I'm so excited to see the new Superman from James Gunn. He's passionate about comic book properties. He gets characters. He knows how to write good stories, and I can't wait for everything that's coming. We got Creature Commandos, um, Superman Legacy, uh, I think there's a Green Lantern show coming to HBO. Uh, I just cannot wait to see this team really focus on what makes DC stories good. And these compelling universes and the character studies. And I think right now we're going to enter a golden age of DC. And finally, I can stop hearing fucking from Marvel fanboys how Marvel's so much better than DC. I love both of them, but I think they're in two different boxes. And I've always been a fan of DC. As you guys know, my channel is General Zod's Phantom Zone. General Zod is one of my favorite villains of all time. And John Constantine's one of my favorite anti-heroes. Hero, sometimes. Those are my two favorites in the DC universe. And I just can't wait to learn about new characters I'm not really interested in because James Gunn has a knack for writing weird characters that nobody knows about and making them good. So I'm super excited and I can't wait every DC afternoon to bring you these news. Next week, I will be talking about episode 4 of The Penguin and I'll do a breakdown. If you guys want, I can also do a breakdown of the podcast. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do like a little watch along thing with their podcast and kind of break down my thoughts as they talk about the episodes and things like that. They're about an hour long, so it'd be a pretty long stream. So if you guys are interested in that, I could do something like that for everyone. And thank you so much for joining me. I will see you tomorrow. I have a tier list ranking with Justin Proper, Pop Culture PB. We're going to be doing a Todd Phillips movie tier list ranking, so that should be interesting. And you know, also I'm going to be doing more movie breakdowns. I got a couple of movies that I watched that I'm going to be putting on the channel. In December, I've got 3 different top 10 lists I'm going to be working on. I got a top 10 movies of 2024, top 10 horror movies of 2024, and the top 10 worst movies of 2024. So it's going to be a lot of work. I'm probably going to start my first list in the beginning of December, and I should be done with all of them towards the end. I want to save my last 2 top 10 lists for the end of December so I can try to watch as many movies. So far, I've seen about 25 horror movies and a couple of other different movies here and there in between there. And I've seen like 10 or 11 different shows. So I try to watch as much as I can before I make the list. It's just super hard to get everything. So thank you everybody for watching. And as always, remember, there is only one rule. Here in the Phantom Zone, kneel before General Zod.